All right, so there's really no way to use the piping in Revit to easily and quickly do this. So what I would recommend is I made this little file here in Rhino, just a piped line, right? So there's a line in the middle and I piped it. And then I saved it out as a Rhino 6 file to get it into Revit 2022. Is if we go and I just open up a new model and I use the architectural template, you can actually use the architectural model in place. So I'm going to go to my 3D view, go to architecture component model in place, and if you do a mass, right, it's going to turn the masses on. So basically what it's doing, I'm going to name this pipe. What it's doing is it's coming in to the massing and site and turning the masses on. We'll talk about that later. And then I'll just insert, go ahead and import the CAD file, that line 3DM, right? And I'll insert that. So now I've got this 3DM file in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to create and reference line, and I'm going to make sure it's set to draw on face and 3D snapping is selected, and it'll come down here and it'll snap to pieces on this, like it'll snap to quadrants basically. So the only thing you have, it's not going to be exact. If you wanted this to be exact, then I suggest in Rhino that wherever that sweep line is, you sweep like an edge line here around, so you can get the exact piece. But if you already have the cylinders, you can bring those in and just snap right to the edges. And again, it's not going to be exact, but it'll come in here and snap to those guys for you. Whoops. Let's go ahead and get that guy in there correctly. I'll delete that one. All right. And let's delete that extra one, right? So now we have this guy right there. And then what I'm going to do at this point, I can actually just delete the existing import. And then I'm going to place a point. So I'm going to go to point here, and so go to point here and place a point. Doesn't matter where you place it, somewhere on this model, so I'll just place it right there, making sure that it's set to draw on face. And what that does is it hosts that point. You can see it getting hosted on that line. And then what I can do is do a reference circle and set that so I went to reference, circle, and then set, and I'm going to set that current, and then it's going to draw on that plane. And I'll just come in here and do, I don't know, just click that and then make that 3/8 of an inch, right? And then I'll go and pick and hold down the control key and pick both of those at the same time and do create form, and it'll create that form around it. And then I finish, well actually before I finish the mask, let's go ahead and pick this guy, and you can put a material on it here, but I'm going to put a material parameter on it so I can access it outside of this little family. So click on the gray box and then click on this little guy, and I'll put pipe mat, and I'll make this an instance so it'll show up in the properties dialog box, and then I'll finish that, and now I'm in the project. And if I pick that, I can put a material on it, right? So I'll put parking stripe on this guy, and if we go to shaded, you can see it'll update to parking stripe. And then if I want to access this, I can go to edit in place. And actually one thing that's kind of nice about it is you can actually pull these things around if you want to. So like if I wanted this guy to be right, these guys to be higher, I can pick them and kind of move them up, you know, and move them around, right? And it'll kind of find it, and you can play with them. But that's one way to get it done. Now, one thing you have to realize is that when Revit turned on the massing at site, it did show mass form and floors, so it showed it in all of every view. So if I go to level 1, it's showing in level 1, right? If I go to show mass form and floors and go to show mass by view settings, you're not going to see the masses anywhere because by default they're turned off in the visibility graphics. So you have to do one of two things. Every time you open and close Revit, you're going to have to go to the massing in site and say show mass form and floors, and it'll show it everywhere. Or you're going to have to individually go to the views that you want it to be in and turn the masses on, and then they'll always be visible even when you open and close Revit. Okay.